All right, my new novel is about to be published this week on Amazon KDP in hardcover, full color. I don't know what the price will be yet. It might be a tad more expensive than the first one, but we'll see. I'll try to keep the cost down as much as I possibly can for the hardcover. And then after this is done and uploaded, I'll put out the paperback of the first volume, Every Angel is Terrifying, which will then be available in full color paperback. So this is the cover of the book. And this, of course, is the skull of a coyote. The dog, in whatever canine form it takes, is always associated with the underworld, with the descent into hell. In every single mythology around the world, it's always that. And coyote is pretty much the main character in Navajo mythology, but is also a big character in Hopi mythology as well. Not only that, but it represents the open jaws of hell. If you go back and you look at Christian art from, let's say, the 12th or 13th century depicting hell, they show it as a wide open mouth of a gigantic beast. So she's descending into what Joseph Campbell calls the belly of the beast. But this is also an allusion to the Mesoamerican Ur symbol, which I figured out, which is the open mouth of a creature. It varies. With Aztec eagle warriors, their headgear is the open beak of an eagle, and the face is on the inside because in the Mesoamerican world they've been swallowed up into the belly of the beast, that is to say, into the astral plane. They don't make a distinction between the human being and the astral plane in the Mesoamerican tradition. And not only that, but in the third volume, there is no place that does not see you. We will journey down into, go through a wormhole that takes us back in time to the Aztecs. And I'm learning Nahuatl right now for that. So this is a preparation for that. So everything in this book is like this. You have to think about what you're looking at. You don't want to go through it and just say, oh, neato, there's that aspect to it. But everything has a point, and everything connects. And the book wants you to think about every single image you see and connect it to every other image that you've seen, not only in this book, but in the first one as well. They connect together. And there's 7 chapters in the first book, and there's 7 in this one. So 7 is the magical number. Also, this book has 555 pages, which in numerology, if you add them up, is 15, and then you reduce it, 5 plus 1 is 6. I live in apartment number 6 here, where I've been living for the past couple of months, and in numerology, I've learned that 6 is a number associated with the planet Venus. And I have a clear view through my apartment window at night, facing directly at Venus, as though everything is lined up around the goddess. And Venus is an echo of Inanna, and she is the main character, is Sarah Cynthia Smith. That's the name I've given her because it's euphonic and memorable. You'll remember that name when you hear it. Okay, so I'll read the back cover here, just the top paragraph. In this, the second novel of the Motorcycle Girl trilogy, John David Ebert tells the story of Sarah Cynthia Smith's journey down into Phoenix, Arizona in 1993. The novel is structured using the circles of Dante's Inferno as its guide, while Sarah forms new relationships with college students at Arizona State University. They work together to create their own hermetic religion as Sarah studies her father's Black Notebook and learns about the secrets of the universe. The Black Notebook is, of course, this novel itself, but it's also a notebook, as we'll see in the flyby here. Let me just do a quick flyby. I've made several videos about this so far, but we haven't gone all the way through as a quick flyby, and I'll just point out a few details. That square root of x means, the way I use it anyway, not the way it's used in algebra, but the way I'm using it is the square root of a mystery. That's what the father in the Black Notebook is trying to get at, the mystery of existence, the mystery of the existence of the universe. The prologue in Limbo begins with a dream. The astral plane is where we go at night when we go to sleep. It's the same thing as Dante's Inferno, which begins also with Limbo. So that's the first ring. And then she rides her motorcycle down from Luke Air Force Base, which is about a half an hour drive to get to Phoenix. Then we have her transforming into Inanna. Inanna descends down through the 7 gates, and at each gate she has to leave a different part of her clothing because the clothing represents, it's a very ancient metaphor, The clothing is analogous to the various layers of the astral body, the subtle body as a whole, which the physical body, the etheric body, astral body, and the ego with all of its component parts. All of those have to be, when the soul goes into the astral plane and stands as we're naked before God, she has to go down and stand, Inanna does, go down and stand naked before the mistress of the underworld, Ereshkigal. So that's what she does here. She starts out going through those 7 gates and leaving behind a piece of her rock collection at each one of the gates, and in some cases some of her clothing, as she descends down into hell to meet Ereshkigal, who will turn up to be a woman named Myra, who is based on an Amazonian goddess named Myrina. And so they have a kind of relationship. It's not a man-hating relationship. It's just that the Sarah character is bisexual. And so then they become the double goddess, which began with Inanna, mistress of the great above, and Ereshkigal, mistress of the great below. And then those later transform into Demeter and Persephone, the double goddess. And you can find that archetype all over the world. So that's what Sarah and Myra will represent in the middle of the book. Now, these stylistic transformations that I've done with her journals here, and a lot of quotes from a real journal. Here, this is all the influence of Stéphane Mallarmé, the French symbolist writer who exploded poems. So that's the style that I'm alluding to here. You really have to know your literature to follow this, to follow what's going on. This is not a book for a popular audience. Popular audience isn't going to get it ever. Just like with Moby Dick, it's the same thing, and that's the first book. Moby Dick sets the prototype for this book, which is to say that Moby Dick was the first hybrid of fiction and nonfiction ever done, which is why it bombed. Nobody understood it. It took 30 years after Melville's death for people to catch up to it and realize what the hell he'd done here. So it's the same kind of thing here. The father's journals are based, they're nonfiction, and they're an actual real, they're a real journal. They're my notes that I was planning on writing for a history of the burial of the dead. So it's not made up. And here's the black notebook, what it actually looks like in the fictional universe here with the square root of X, as he goes through the history of Arizona. And we go through with all the dams, the various dams that are made and constructed, some funny jokes as you go through studying all the rivers, 7 primary rivers in Arizona. So there's that number again. So you have to think about that. You have to think about what you're looking at. And the drawings that I've made for the book, they're all my art, are done in the style of Rudolf Steiner blackboard drawings, sort of, as it were. This one's a little more elaborate than Steiner's blackboard drawings. And then so we go down through the rings of Dante. Those who favor violence, Geronimo certainly did. We tell the mini biography of the life of Geronimo. The next level down is those who are the fraudulent. You can study Dante's map for this. I follow it almost exactly. The Minotaur that we saw there is in where it should be in Dante. I'm using Dante's Inferno the same way that, not that I'm comparing myself to Joseph, of course, that's ridiculous, but I'm using it the same way he used the Odyssey, and then applied that skeleton to Dublin, Ireland. I'm taking the skeleton of Dante's Inferno and applying that to Phoenix, Arizona. And this is one of the funniest parts. Some of these gravestones in the Arizona town of Tombstone are amongst the funniest gravestones I've ever seen. I'll read you this one. It says, "Here lies Lester Moore, 4 slugs from a 44. No less, no more." And then she says, do you suppose Les was any good at poker? No, probably not. That's why it's called Boot Hill Graveyard. Everybody's died here in gunfights. So there's lots of funny jokes. And then we go through the burial of the dead. So this is the real notebook that I wrote probably 20 years ago, as she meets college kids at Arizona State University, though she doesn't attend it as a college student. She has no use for college. It's corrupt. Academe has fallen. It's become a petrified institution, as Carol Quigley would call it. Its time has come. And then so you go through the entire history of human death and burial, back and forth in oscillation with sex scenes that the girl is having with the new friends that she makes in Tempe, Arizona. And then we go through these astonishing sites of Karahan Tepe and Göbekli Tepe and Navali Chori. It's just some of the most amazing stuff. Okay, and then we just keep rolling through the notebooks, and the sex scenes go back and forth. Eros and Thanatos, the two big mysteries. That's the square root of X right there. Eros, Thanatos. Those are the two biggest mysteries and the two biggest problems in life that we must face, that every person has to deal with and work it out for themselves, one way or another. So that's the square root of X that the Father's notebook is talking about, and it's black, corresponding to the Negrito phase of alchemy, which also has a whitening phase and a reddening phase. So the three books, though they don't follow the same sequence in alchemy, they do have the same colors, and that in itself is significant. Those are the same colors in Sankhya Yoga, which is a form of Indian philosophy. And she goes through with this tattoo artist girlfriend of hers. She's a tattoo artist, so they go through, and we have 7 scenes of, you might say, scarification, where she's either getting a tattoo or a piercing, because we're reconstructing her astral body, the one that she gave up in the first chapter with the 7 gates. So you have to look back at how this chapter resonates with that chapter with the 7 gates, where she gave up the subtle body. Now with the piercings and the tattooings, it's being reconstructed so that she can leave hell and go elsewhere. I find this fascinating. These are 3 statues that are the Sumerian, earliest version of the Sumerian gods, the Anunnaki. And it's interesting, this is probably the sky god An, who is associated with the pole star. That wand he's holding in his hand is both phallic and meant to represent the pole star, most likely. And this is the birth goddess over here, the prototype for Isis, mother of Horus. Belit Eli is her name. And then over here, this is most likely Inanna, because she doesn't have any offspring. She's not a mother goddess. Just as Sarah Cynthia Smith has no interest in childbearing. And so that's probably what this is here. But it's also the penis in the middle, in between the balls, the testicles, which have been transformed into female energies. And so this will later resonate through history as Christ between the 2 thieves, which is taken over from the Mithraic mysteries, where you have Mithras in the center and the 2 Ephors on either side of him, Cades and Catopates. And then later on in the book, she has 2 Native American companions, John Brown and Kenneth Green, that flank her as she's going around trying to solve the mystery of a skinwalker, a Navajo skinwalker that's loose on the reservation. And of course, the skinwalker transforms, it's a werewolf, basically. It transforms into a wolf. So there's the coyote again from the cover. Everything resonates. You have to keep track of the images. It's extremely complex. This is not a scrapbook. That's not what it is. It's a very complex journey with lots of resonances. And then as you go through the notebooks, they will echo actual experiences that she's having in the current temporal physical plane. There'll be, like here's a mask in a tattoo shop, and he was talking in the notebooks about the history of reverence for the dead as ancestor worship, and here's a Chokwe mask from Africa that's connected with their ancestor worship that she sees in the tattoo shop. So you have it's like a caduceus, the 2 narratives, her narrative at Arizona State University, and then it twines like a pair of snakes with the Father's narrative in the notebooks. So the book itself is actually a caduceus. So you have to think about these things. Everything is carefully placed. Nothing is random here at all. So eventually she gets to a point here where she says, so here's what we're doing. And then she explains it with this diagram, which I've taken from Finnegan's Wake, where the twins are using geometry to construct their mother's vagina. So that's what it's meant to be. And they're sort of making fun of it. That's what it is. But it's also a monad that goes through transformations like John Dee's hieroglyphic monad. It goes through, which also, as you read the hieroglyph book, it undergoes transformations as you're reading it. And she says, the bottom vertex is my clit, because she's gotten her clit pierced. The green line connects my nipples, and the top vertex is my third eye dermal anchor. This is my new astral body. The top triangle points to the spirit world, the bottom triangle points downwards to my animal body. And these are also the colors. They're not random. These are all colors associated with the chakras, minus 2 of them, since this is only 5 It's only got the four sides and the 5 lines altogether. The lower chakras are the lowest chakra is the Muladhara, which is red. The next chakra up is yellow, then or orange rather, and then the third chakra is yellow. The fourth chakra, the heart chakra, is blue, and so on up to the top chakras, which take on hues of blue, then indigo, and then purple. So it's meant to correspond to the chakras as well, and the chakras compose the astral body, because she says, I am both Apollo and Dionysus, both of those. So then we go to pyramids. We've been talking about triangles, so now we're at the point in the book with the history of the rise of the pyramids and their symbolism and what they mean. So as I say, the two timelines intertwine like a pair of serpents. And that's the influence on me of Joseph Campbell, this with all these images, probably the influence from his historical atlas of world mythology, with all the images and the way he uses them in there. That's the influence on the nonfiction part of the book. I have other influences on the fiction part and the fiction style from William Burroughs and Cormac McCarthy and Thomas Pynchon. And then part 5, ab ovo, from the beginning. So we go through and talk about the Big Bang and the history of it and the various stages of it. And then she draws out pictures showing how it can be mapped on to the ancient diagram of the 4 elements. If you just make one change to that diagram, it maps on perfectly. And then the ascent to Mishangnavi, which is on Second Mesa, which is the village from the first book. So she wants to go back and visit the characters that that the helicopter pilot, who eventually crashes and dies, has told her about when he crashed near the mesas and they nursed him back to life. And so she perceives them kind of like celebrities, and so she goes to meet them. And then, as they say, there's a mystery that she attempts to help them solve. So she becomes, with the skinwalkers that are on the loose, they're killing horses, and nobody seems to know why. And so she goes around and interviewing all these different Native American characters, some Hopi, some Navajo. And as I say, she's flanked by 2 characters, John Brown and Kenneth Green, who link back up to that Anunnaki picture that I was talking about. And then we go through Navajo cosmology. Since the first book explored Hopi cosmology, this book explores the cosmology of their traditional enemies, the Navajo. And that they are enemies is and then here it goes back with the final ceremony that has the influence of French Impressionist symbolism. And then she enters through that portal. That's an allusion to through the looking glass, through the portal. Okay, so that's the book. It'll be available in hardcover on Amazon. And the first book is just as complex. I haven't gone through and explained it, having done a video on it. But this should show you the levels of complexity that are involved here. It's a lot. And you will, those of you who do, that it clicks for, will want to go back and reread them several times, I'm sure. Okay, that's it. This will be available on Amazon, along with the first book, which is there now, and then the third book probably about a year from now. All right.